At my grandma's funeral, my dad opened the casket and put his fingers inside Grandma's mouth. "What are you doing?" Everyone shouted at once, including me. Dad was leaning into Grandma's casket, his fingers literally in her mouth like he was searching for something. The funeral director rushed forward while Mom screamed his name. "I just need to find it now!" Dad's voice was desperate, manic. "Before it's too late!" Uncle Tony and my cousins grabbed him, trying to pull him away from the casket. Dad fought them, still reaching for Grandma's face. "Please, you don't understand. There's thousands in there." Nobody listened. 4 men now wrestling him back. In the struggle, Dad's elbow hit the casket's edge. The whole thing tipped. Grandma's body rolled out onto the funeral home carpet. Flowers scattered. Someone's aunt fainted. Mom was sobbing and hitting Dad's chest. "You ruined everything. Your own mother's funeral." But I saw it. Something small and gold had rolled from Grandma's mouth when she hit the floor. While everyone screamed at Dad, while the funeral director called security, I watched that glinting object slide under the side table where they kept the guest book. Security arrived. They dragged Dad out, still babbling about money, about inheritance, about running out of time. Mom followed, apologizing to everyone. The funeral was basically over. I knelt by the table, reached under. My fingers found it, a gold tooth, heavy, but there was a seam running down the middle. I glanced around. Everyone was either leaving or helping the funeral director with Grandma. I twisted the tooth. It opened like a locket. Inside, a tiny rolled paper. I unrolled it carefully. Just numbers, coordinates. In the bathroom, I plugged them into my phone. The pin dropped on Mackey's bar on the south side. I knew that place. Dad used to go there before he got sober. It closed 5 years ago after the owner died in a fire. I told Mom I needed air. Drove 20 minutes to the old bar. The windows were boarded up, graffiti covering the plywood. The door was chained shut. But on one board, someone had carved Alan Donaghy in deep letters. My dad's name. Below it, an arrow pointing left. I followed the building around. More arrows carved into boards, into the brick itself, leading me to the back alley. There, hidden behind a dumpster, was a suitcase. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside, wrapped in plastic, was a revolver and a note. "The inheritance is yours. All you have to do is take it. One job, one trigger, 1 million. The target's photo is under the gun." I lifted the gun, saw the photo. It was my father. "I'm sorry, son." I spun around. Dad stood at the alley entrance, pointing his own gun at me. Not angry, just sad. "This was meant to be for Mom and me," he said. "She was supposed to outlive me. Take the contract on my life. $1 million to make sure you and your sister were set for life. You hired someone to kill you? Life insurance won't pay for suicide, but Mom was dying anyway. Cancer. She had maybe weeks left. We figured one quick trigger pull. She collects the money, dies naturally soon after. You kids inherit everything. Clean. That's insane. But she died first, 3 days ago. The contract was already paid for. Non-refundable. Someone's going to collect that million, son. They gave me 48 hours to find her tooth, get the coordinates, assign a new shooter," Dad continued. "Time's almost up. If nobody claims it, they send their own guy. Professional. Might take you and your sister out too, just to be clean. So you want me to? I want you to live. Take the money. Take care of your sister. Tell your mother I had gambling debts, that I was dirty. Let her hate me. It's easier than the truth. I can't kill you, Dad. Then we both die. Maybe Mom and Sarah too." He lowered his gun. "I'm already dead, son. Have been since the diagnosis. Lung cancer. Stage 4. I've got maybe a month anyway. This way, it means something. The weight of the gun. The photo of my father's face. The $1 million that would save us or damn us. Grandma knew. It was her idea. She loved you kids more than anything." His voice broke. 10 seconds, son. Choose. Save the family or lose everything." I raised the gun. Dad smiled, tears running down his face. "Tell your mother I loved her. Tell Sarah I'm proud of her. Tell yourself this was mercy." I stand there frozen with the gun still aimed at his chest, my finger resting against the trigger but refusing to move. The metal feels heavy and wrong in my hand, like it weighs 1,000 pounds instead of whatever a gun actually weighs. Dad just watches me with those sad eyes, not begging or yelling or trying to talk me into it anymore. He already knows I can't do it. I can see it in his face, the way he's standing there calm and ready, like he's been waiting his whole life for this moment, and now that it's here, he's almost relieved. My hand starts shaking so bad, I have to lower the gun before I accidentally pull the trigger just from the trembling. I back away toward my car one step at a time, expecting him to chase me or grab the gun or something, but he just nods once. It's a small movement, barely there, but it says everything. The distance between us is maybe 10 feet, but it feels like we're standing on opposite sides of a canyon. He doesn't move to follow me. I shove the gold tooth deep into my front pocket, feeling the weight of it against my leg. Dad's photo goes in there too. the glossy paper already getting bent and creased. The suitcase stays where it is on the ground next to the dumpster. I turn and walk out of that alley, forcing myself not to run even though every muscle in my body is screaming at me to sprint. Somewhere in the distance, I hear sirens getting louder, then fading away, heading towards some other family's crisis in some other part of town. In my car, I fumble with my phone, hands shaking so bad I almost drop it twice. I pull up my map history and start deleting everything. The route to Mackey's bar, the pin I dropped, all of it gone with shaky taps on the screen. Then I pop the trunk and get out, looking around the empty parking lot to make sure nobody's watching. The gun goes into the spare tire well under the carpet where the jack is supposed to be. I press the carpet back down and close the trunk as quietly as I can. My brain won't shut up, just keeps screaming words at me like evidence and accessory and conspiracy and a dozen other legal terms I don't actually understand. I'm destroying evidence or hiding evidence or tampering with something. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. My phone starts ringing and I nearly jump out of my skin. Mom's name lights up the screen. Her voice comes through completely destroyed from crying, all rough and broken. She asks where Dad went after security dragged him out of the funeral home. She sounds so small and lost that I almost tell her everything right there. The whole insane story about the tooth and the gun and the contract. The words are right there in my throat, ready to spill out. Instead, I lie. I tell her Dad and I got into a fight about his behavior at the funeral, and we split up, that I don't know where he went. The words taste like metal in my mouth, like I'm chewing on pennies. I promise I'll come home soon, maybe an hour or two. She's quiet for a second, and then says, "Okay," in this tiny voice that makes me feel like the worst son in the world. I hang up and just sit there in the parking lot staring at nothing. 20 minutes later, I'm pulling into our driveway. The house looks the same as it always does, but everything feels different now, like I'm seeing it through dirty glass. I dig the gold tooth out of my pocket as soon as I get inside. It goes into an old sock that I shove behind the dryer in the laundry room, way in the back where nobody ever looks unless they're fishing out lost change. Then I go to my room and try to sleep. I can't. I just lay there staring at the ceiling for hours, watching shadows move across the plaster. Every car that drives past outside makes my heart jump into my throat. I keep thinking it's them, whoever them is, coming to finish what Dad started. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzes on the nightstand. A text from a number I don't recognize. Just 2 words. Clock's running. No signature, no explanation, nothing else. I stare at those 2 words until they stop looking like real letters and just become shapes on the screen. I read them maybe 50 times, trying to figure out what they mean or who sent them or what I'm supposed to do about it. The phone stays in my hand for another 20 minutes before I finally put it down. I get up and walk down the hall to Dad's bedroom. The door is open and the room is empty and dark. His bed is made like he hasn't slept in it in days. On the dresser sits his old sobriety chip, the bronze one for 18 months clean. It's just sitting there in the middle of the dresser like he placed it there on purpose before he left. The sight of it makes me so angry I have to turn around and leave before I throw something at the wall. All those AA meetings, all that talk about being honest and making amends, and this is what he does. This is his idea of being a good father. I go back to my room and pick up my phone. I start typing a text to Sarah about coming home for a few days, something about wanting to see her and missing her. I get 3 words in, and then delete them. I try again with different words. Delete those too. She's safe at college, 3 hours away, safe from whatever this mess is. I need her to stay that way. Whatever happens next, I'm keeping her completely out of it. I delete the whole text thread and put my phone face down on the nightstand. The ceiling becomes my best friend again for the rest of the night. Just me and the shadows and the sound of cars that might or might not be coming for me. Morning comes, but I don't remember falling asleep. Mom's bedroom door opens around 7, and I hear her shuffling down the hallway to the bathroom. When she comes out, I'm sitting at the kitchen table and she looks terrible. Her eyes are so swollen they're almost closed. Her face has this gray color like all the blood drained out. She sits down across from me without saying anything, and we just stare at the table for maybe 5 minutes. I tell her we should postpone Grandma's burial by a day. She nods and picks up her phone. The funeral director answers on the second ring, and Mom explains about family stress and needing more time. He's actually really nice about it considering Dad knocked Grandma out of her casket yesterday. He says they can do tomorrow afternoon instead, and Mom thanks him 3 times before hanging up. She looks at me and asks if I've heard from Dad. I shake my head. The lie comes out so easy now, it barely feels like lying anymore. My phone starts ringing while we're sitting there. Unknown number. Same one from last night. I stand up and walk to my room before answering. The voice on the other end is a woman this time. She sounds calm and professional, like she's calling about a dentist appointment or something normal. She doesn't say hello or introduce herself, just says we need an answer. That's it. Nothing else. I tell her we're mourning and we need time. My voice comes out shaky and desperate. I say anything I can think of to stall. She cuts me off in the middle of a sentence. Her voice stays completely calm when she says we are too, end of day 2. Then she hangs up before I can respond. I stare at my phone for a full minute. The deadline is real. It's actually counting down. I have maybe 24 hours left before something happens. I don't know what that something is, but I know it's bad. I sit on my bed and open my phone's browser. Type in Mackey's Bar Fire. The first result is a news article from 5 years ago. The headline says, "Local bar owner dies in suspected arson." I click it and read the whole thing. The owner's name was Dennis Fletcher. He died when the building caught fire around 2 a.m. The article says investigators found signs of accelerant use. There's a quote from a fire marshal about suspicious burn patterns. I scroll down to the comments section. Most of them are normal stuff about how sad it is. But then I see one that says Fletcher ran a lot more than just a bar, if you know what I mean. Another comment mentions insurance fraud. Someone else hints at organized crime connections. None of the comments give actual details, just whispers and suggestions. I search for more articles about Fletcher and find an obituary. It lists his family, but doesn't say much about his business. I find a follow-up article from 6 months later saying the arson investigation went cold. No arrests, no suspects named. None of this tells me how to get out of what I'm in. I sit there thinking about calling the police, just picking up my phone and telling them everything. The gun, the contract, the handler woman, all of it. I picture myself walking into a police station and explaining the whole story from the beginning. For maybe 10 minutes, I seriously consider it. Then I think about what happens next. They'd ask where the gun is. I'd have to tell them it's in my trunk. They'd search my car right there, find the gun wrapped in plastic in my spare tire well. I'd be arrested before I finished explaining. They'd charge me with weapons violations or evidence tampering or something. I don't even know what the charges would be, but I know they'd exist. I'd end up in jail while Dad and Mom and Sarah are still in danger. That doesn't help anyone. I need something else. Some way to do something without actually doing anything. I open a new browser tab and search for anonymous crime tips. Find a Crime Stoppers website with a form you can fill out without giving your name. I type in a message about a suspicious suitcase behind the dumpster at Mackey's old location on the south side. Keep it vague. Don't mention the gun or the contract or anything specific. Just say there's something there worth checking. Hit submit and close the browser. It feels like I did something even though I know I didn't really do anything at all. Maybe someone will find it. Maybe they won't. Either way, I can tell myself I tried. An hour passes. Then my phone rings again. Different number this time. I answer and hear Dad's voice, but he's coughing so hard I can barely understand the words. He's trying to say something between the coughs. Something about fixing this. About how I should just walk away and forget it happened. His voice sounds worse than yesterday. Weaker. More desperate. Each cough sounds wet and painful, like it's tearing something inside his chest. He finally stops coughing long enough to say he can make this whole thing go away if I just trust him. I don't say anything. Just listen to him breathe heavy on the other end. He coughs twice more and then hangs up. I sit there holding my phone, wondering what he meant by fixing it, wondering if he even can. My phone buzzes with a text, maybe an hour after Dad's call. Unknown number again. Just an address for a strip mall across town. Then another text right after. Bring the tooth tonight at 8 p.m. That's it. Short and direct. No threats, no explanations. Just instructions like I'm supposed to follow them automatically. I screenshot both messages and save them. Not sure why. Maybe for evidence later. Maybe just to have proof this is really happening. I spend the rest of the afternoon trying to act normal around Mom. We eat lunch together without talking much. She asks again about Dad, and I say I still haven't heard from him. She nods like she expected that answer. Around 6, I tell her I'm meeting a friend for dinner. She barely looks up from her coffee. I get in my car and drive toward the strip mall. Take a route that lets me pass by it twice before actually parking, trying to see if anything looks wrong or dangerous. It just looks like a normal strip mall. Half the stores are closed. A pizza place on one end, a nail salon, a check cashing place. I park 3 rows back from the main building, far enough to watch but close enough to see details. It's only 7:15. I sit in my car with the engine off and wait. 2 men show up around 7:45. They're wearing dark jackets even though it's not that cold. They walk to the closed pizza place and stand near the entrance. One of them lights a cigarette. The other one keeps looking at his phone. They look exactly like what you'd expect hired muscle to look like. Big, quiet, alert. They don't talk to each other much. Just stand there smoking and waiting. Then at 7:55, a third person shows up. It's the woman from the phone calls. I can tell by the way she moves. Confident, purposeful. She's pacing back and forth near the nail salon, talking on her cell phone. Her hand gestures are measured and controlled like she's discussing a business deal. She looks more like a real estate agent than a criminal. Professional clothes, nice haircut. Nothing about her screams dangerous. That somehow makes her scarier than the 2 men with their obvious tough guy routine. She hangs up her phone and checks her watch, looks around the parking lot. I sink lower in my seat even though I'm pretty sure she can't see me from this distance. I watch them for another 15 minutes, checking my phone every few seconds like that will somehow change what I'm seeing. The woman keeps pacing back and forth while the two men just stand there like statues, barely moving except to light another cigarette. My hands are sweating, so bad I can barely hold my phone. I open a new text message and type out the excuse about family being everywhere tonight, not safe to meet, and I stare at those words for maybe 2 full minutes before hitting send. The second it goes through, I start my car and back out of the parking spot, trying not to look like I'm running away, even though that's exactly what I'm doing. I don't peel out or speed or anything that would draw attention. Just drive normal. Turn left out of the parking lot. Head toward the main road, but my heart is going crazy in my chest, pounding so hard it hurts. I keep checking the rearview mirror expecting to see headlights following me, but there's nothing. Just regular traffic. Normal people going to normal places. I make it maybe 3 blocks before my phone buzzes. I almost drive off the road trying to grab it. The message is short, just 4 words that make my stomach drop. Tomorrow, noon, or we choose. I read it 5 times, 6 times. The words don't change. I'm not even home yet when I get that text, still driving through traffic lights and trying to breathe normal. I pull into a gas station parking lot and just sit there with the engine running, staring at my phone. Or we choose. That's a threat. That's them saying they'll pick the target themselves if I don't show up. Maybe me, maybe Sarah, maybe Mom. I sit in that gas station for 20 minutes before I can make myself drive the rest of the way home. When I get inside, the house is dark and quiet. Mom's bedroom door is closed. I go straight to my room and open my laptop, typing in searches for criminal defense lawyers and witness protection programs. The clock on my computer says it's barely 9:30, but it feels like the middle of the night. I read forum posts from people asking about immunity deals and plea bargains, trying to understand what kind of trouble I'm actually in. Everything I read makes it sound worse. Conspiracy to commit murder, accessory before the fact, weapons charges, prison time measured in years, not months. I find a legal aid website that has a chat feature, but it's closed until morning. I bookmark it, keep searching. There's a Reddit thread from 2 years ago where someone asks about turning in evidence of a crime they witnessed, and half the comments say, get a lawyer first. The other half say, go to the police immediately. Nobody agrees on anything. I read case summaries about people who tried to cooperate with police and still got charged. People who got immunity deals that fell apart. People who went to prison for things they only knew about, but didn't actually do. My eyes start burning from staring at the screen, but I keep reading. It's past midnight, then 1 a.m., then 2. I find an article about witness protection that says you basically have to disappear completely. New name, new city, cut off contact with everyone you know. I think about Sarah at college, about Mom grieving Dad and Grandma, about just vanishing and leaving them with no explanation. I can't do that. I keep searching until the clock hits 3 a.m. and my brain feels like mush. I close the laptop and head out to the garage through the kitchen door. The motion sensor light clicks on and I pop my trunk, reaching under the carpet to pull out the gun still wrapped in the plastic. It feels heavier than before, like the weight of it increased overnight. I look around the garage for somewhere better to hide it. There's a metal toolbox on the highest shelf near the ceiling, the kind Dad used to keep his power tools in before he got too sick to do projects. I drag over the stepladder and climb up, my hands shaking so bad I almost drop the gun twice. The toolbox has a combination lock that I set to Mom's birthday, because that's the only number I can remember right now. I shove the gun inside and close it, then push the toolbox as far back on the shelf as it will go. Those extra 3 feet of height don't actually make it safer, but it feels like I did something. I climb down and fold up the ladder, putting it back where it was. My hands won't stop shaking. I try to squeeze them into fists to make it stop, but that just makes my whole arms shake instead. I'm putting the ladder away when I hear the door from the kitchen open. Mom comes out in her bathrobe, her hair messy from sleep, squinting in the bright garage light. She asks what I'm doing out here so late, and I freeze like a kid caught stealing cookies. Then she looks at me closer and asks if Dad relapsed, if this is all about him drinking again, if that's why he acted so crazy at the funeral. Her voice is tired and sad and worried all at once. I just shake my head because I literally don't know what to say to her. The real answer is so much worse than drinking. She stands there for a minute like she's waiting for me to explain, but when I don't say anything, she just nods and tells me to get some sleep. She goes back inside, and I stand in the garage alone with the motion light clicking off, leaving me in the dark. I barely sleep at all. Maybe an hour total. When my alarm goes off at 7, I feel like I got hit by a truck, but I force myself up and into the shower. I need to talk to a lawyer, someone who can tell me what to actually do instead of just reading forums written by people who probably don't know what they're talking about. I search for defense attorneys near me and find a guy named Fletcher Crawford, who has decent reviews and offers free consultations. His office is downtown in one of those old buildings that looks like it used to be nice 50 years ago. I call and somehow get an appointment for 9 a.m., probably because it's so early nobody else wants that slot. I tell Mom I have to run an errand and she barely looks up from her coffee. I drive downtown with the radio off, rehearsing in my head how to explain this whole situation without sounding completely crazy. Fletcher's office is on the 3rd floor, cramped and dark with law books stacked everywhere and a desk covered in yellow legal pads. He's maybe 50, gray hair, tired eyes, wearing a shirt and tie that both look like they've seen better days. I sit down in the chair across from his desk and just start talking. I tell him about the funeral, the gold tooth, the coordinates, the gun, the contract, Dad's cancer, the handler, the 48-hour deadline, all of it. He listens without interrupting, just taking notes on one of those yellow pads, his pen moving steady across the paper. When I finally finish talking, he sets down his pen and looks at me for a long minute. Then he explains in plain English about conspiracy charges and weapons violations, about how possessing that gun makes me part of this, whether I wanted to be or not, about how hiding evidence is its own crime. He doesn't sugarcoat anything, just lays out exactly how much trouble I'm in. Then he suggests I contact his brother Victor, who's a detective, and might be able to help if I'm willing to cooperate fully with an investigation. He makes it really clear this is my one chance to get ahead of this before it gets worse. He writes Victor's number on a piece of paper and slides it across the desk. I fold it up and put it in my pocket, my hands still shaking. The drive home from Fletcher's office takes me through neighborhoods I don't usually go through. I'm stopped at a red light when I notice a gray sedan 3 cars back. Nothing special about it except when I turn right at the next intersection, it turns right too. I keep driving straight for 2 more blocks, and the sedan stays behind me, keeping the same distance. My chest gets tight. I take a random right turn into a residential neighborhood, winding through streets with no reason to be there. I check my mirror, and the sedan keeps going straight on the main road. I sit at a stop sign for a minute, watching my mirror, but it doesn't come back. Maybe I'm being paranoid. Maybe it was just someone going the same direction. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. I finish the drive home, taking a longer route, checking my mirror every few seconds. When I get home, I pull out my phone and text Sarah before I can talk myself out of it. Stay on campus, don't come home, love you. I hit send, and immediately she responds with a string of confused emojis and question marks asking, "What's wrong? Is Mom okay? Is Dad okay? What's going on?" I stare at her messages and don't answer any of them. Keeping her away and confused is better than bringing her into this nightmare. She texts 3 more times over the next hour, but I don't respond. Eventually, she stops. At 11:30, I get back in my car and drive to the strip mall again. This time, I don't park far away. I pull into a spot near the closed pizza place and turn off my engine. Before I get out, I open my phone's voice recorder app and hit record, then slide the phone into my jacket pocket with the microphone facing out. I have absolutely nothing else with me. No tooth, no gun, no leverage. Just the recorder running and my pulse hammering in my ears. I get out of my car and walk toward the nail salon. The handler woman is already there, standing near the entrance with one of the men from yesterday. The other guy is gone. Just these 2. She sees me coming and doesn't smile or wave or anything. Just watches me walk up with that same calm, professional expression she had on the phone. I stop maybe 10 feet away from them and wait. She checks her watch like I'm late, even though I'm exactly on time. The man next to her doesn't say anything, just stands there with his arms crossed, looking at me like I'm a problem that needs solving. The handler finally looks up from her watch and asks where the tooth is, her voice flat and businesslike, like we're discussing a late payment instead of a murder contract. I take a breath and tell her I want to understand what happens next first. I want to know how this actually works before I hand anything over. She tilts her head slightly and studies me for a second, then starts explaining. She pulls out her phone and shows me a photo of the tooth with numbers on the back I hadn't noticed before. Those numbers match an account somewhere, she says, and when they get proof the job is done, they release the payment to whoever completed it. The proof part is what makes my hands start sweating worse because she explains it so simply, like she's describing how to return something at a store. They need documentation, she says. Photos with timestamps. Specific details that prove the target is actually dead and not just hiding somewhere. Listen to 90 Seconds and rate me 5 stars on Spotify. Doing a giveaway for people who did this and show proof on my Instagram. There will be 4 winners, and you get to choose between a Spotify or Amazon gift card. The way she talks about my father dying makes me want to throw up right there in the parking lot. She slides her phone back in her pocket and asks if I understand the process now, and I manage to nod, even though my throat feels completely closed up. I tell her Dad has stage 4 lung cancer, and maybe a month left anyway, trying to make it sound like that changes something. Like that makes this whole thing less horrible. She just shrugs and looks at me like I'm being difficult about nothing. Her exact words are whether I want him dying in a parking lot instead of a hospital bed, and she says it like she's genuinely confused why I'd choose the worse option. Like she's doing us some kind of favor by offering to kill him professionally, instead of letting cancer do it slowly. The man standing next to her shifts his weight and checks his watch, clearly bored with this whole conversation. She notices me staring at him and explains that her people can handle it cleanly if I just sign off and walk away, make it look like natural causes so there's no investigation or questions. She describes it exactly like she's offering to mow my lawn or fix my car, just another service she can provide for the right price. My brain can't process how casual she is about all of this. I ask for 24 more hours to think about it, and she pulls out her phone again, scrolling through messages while I stand there waiting. She says the people funding this aren't patient types, but she can give me until tomorrow morning because she likes me. The way she mentions the people funding it, calling them a group like they're some kind of business department, makes this feel even more wrong. She tells me to have an answer by 9 a.m., or they'll proceed with their own solution. Then she and her guy walk back to their car without saying goodbye or shaking hands or anything normal. I watch them drive away, and my legs feel weak enough that I have to lean against my car for a minute. I get in and drive straight to the address Fletcher gave me for his brother Victor, a detective who works out of a downtown precinct in a building that smells like old coffee and floor cleaner the second I walk through the doors. Fletcher is already there waiting in the lobby, probably because he wanted to make sure I actually showed up and didn't run away or do something stupid. We go through security, and Victor meets us in a small interview room with a recorder sitting in the middle of a gray table. He's older than Fletcher, maybe mid-40s, with the kind of tired eyes that suggest he's seen way worse than whatever I'm about to tell him. Fletcher sits down next to me and nods for me to start talking, and I realize my hands are shaking so bad I have to put them under the table. I tell Victor everything about the tooth, the gun behind the bar, the contract, the handler's offer to make it look natural. I don't give him the woman's exact description yet, or tell him where we met, because part of me is still scared of what happens if I fully cooperate. Victor just listens and takes notes, occasionally asking me to repeat a detail or clarify a timeline. He asks when I found the tooth, when I met the handler, what exactly she said about proof and payment. His questions are specific and detailed in a way that makes me feel like he actually believes me and isn't just humoring some crazy person. Fletcher jumps in a few times to clarify legal points or remind me I don't have to answer certain questions, but mostly he just sits there being present so I'm not alone in this. When I finish talking, Victor sets down his pen and explains they can offer some witness protection resources, but warns me the department is stretched thin right now. He's completely honest about it, saying they can't provide round-the-clock security for my whole family, that they don't have the budget or people for that kind of operation. The way he admits the limitations actually makes me trust him more than if he'd promised to keep us completely safe. He explains what they can do, which is mostly monitoring and quick response if something happens. Maybe some patrol cars driving by our house more often. It's not much, but it's something, and hearing him lay it out plainly helps me understand what I'm actually working with here. Fletcher asks about my legal exposure, and Victor says if I cooperate fully now, it'll help significantly, but he can't make any promises about charges. Together, the three of us start working out a plan where I'll lure the handler to a recorded handoff in a public place, while undercover officers watch from nearby. Victor explains they need to catch her in the act of trying to complete the contract, or at least facilitating it, that my testimony alone isn't enough without evidence. Then he says Dad has to be part of the setup for it to work, that they need the actual target involved to make the case solid. The thought of involving Dad again, of putting him in danger, or making him relive this nightmare, makes me feel physically sick. I pull out my phone, and Victor gives me a number to call Dad on, some kind of secure line they use for witnesses. My finger hovers over the call button for a few seconds before I force myself to press it. Dad answers on the third ring, and his voice sounds rough, like he's been sleeping or crying or both. I tell him I won't kill him, but I need his help to stop these people from killing both of us. And there's this long silence on the other end, where I can hear him breathing, but not saying anything. Finally, he asks what I need him to do, and his voice cracks a little on the last word. I explain the plan as simply as I can, about meeting the handler with police watching, about trying to get evidence to arrest her, and shut this whole thing down. Dad listens without interrupting, and when I finish, he agrees immediately, but says he has one condition. His only requirement is that nothing happens to me or Mom legally, that he takes all the responsibility for setting this up, and we stay clear. His voice is weak, but completely determined, like he's already decided this is how it has to be, and nothing I say will change his mind. For the first time in days, I feel something that might be hope, this tiny possibility that maybe we can actually get out of this alive and together. That evening, I drive home and find Mom sitting at the kitchen table staring at nothing, her hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. I pull out the chair across from her and sit down heavy, trying to figure out how to say this without saying everything. She looks up at me with these tired eyes, and I just start talking, telling her we're in some kind of danger because of Dad, that she needs to trust me even though I can't explain all the details right now. The words barely leave my mouth before her hand flies across the table and connects with my face, the slap echoing in the quiet kitchen and making my cheeks sting hot. Then she's pulling me into a hug so tight I can barely breathe, her whole body shaking against mine while she cries into my shoulder, asking what Dad got us into, what kind of trouble, why won't I tell her everything? I hold her and lie again, saying it's gambling debts and dangerous people, that I'm handling it, but she needs to stay safe for a few days. She pulls back and looks at me like she's trying to see through the lies, but she's too scared and tired to push harder. Late that night, I pack a bag for her while she sits on the bed watching, throwing in clothes and her medications and the photo of her and Grandma from the dresser. She keeps asking why this is necessary, why she can't just stay here, but I tell her it's temporary, just until things settle down, maybe 3 or 4 days at most. The drive across town takes 20 minutes, and neither of us talks much, just the sound of the road and her occasional sniffling from crying earlier. I pull into a cheap motel on the east side, the kind with flickering neon and hourly rates and pay cash for 3 nights at the front desk. The clerk doesn't even look up from his phone when I register her under Brennan, her maiden name from before she married Dad. The room smells like old cigarettes and cleaning chemicals, but it's clean enough, and the lock works when I test it. Mom sits on the bed, and I can see she wants to argue more, wants to demand answers, but exhaustion wins, and she just nods when I tell her to keep her phone on and not tell anyone where she is. I get back home around midnight, and I'm about to pull into the driveway when I notice something wrong down the street. There's a dark sedan just sitting there with its lights off, engine probably running based on the exhaust I can see in the cold air. Nobody parks on our street at this hour. Nobody just sits in their car doing nothing for no reason. I drive past my house and circle the block, coming back around to see if the car moves, but it's still there in the exact same spot. My hands shake a little as I park in my driveway and pull out my phone, zooming in with the camera to get the license plate number. The image is grainy, but I can make out most of the letters and numbers, so I type them into my notes app before heading inside. Every window I pass, I check to see if the car reacts, if anyone gets out or starts following, but it just sits there like a patient predator. Inside, I text the plate number to Victor, and then I wait, pacing around the living room and checking the windows every few minutes to see if the car is still there. 20 minutes crawl by before my phone buzzes with Victor's response, saying the plate came back to a rental company out by the airport, which doesn't tell us much, except confirms that someone is definitely watching the house. Knowing I was right about being followed doesn't make me feel any better, actually makes it worse because now it's real and verified, instead of just paranoid worry. I text back asking what I should do, and Victor says to stay inside, keep doors locked, and he'll have a patrol car swing by a few times tonight. The patrol car thing sounds good, until I realize it means the cops can't actually do anything, unless whoever is watching makes a move first. Early morning comes after maybe 2 hours of sleep on the couch, and I meet Dad behind a hardware store parking lot like Victor told me to. Dad's truck is already there when I pull up, and when he gets out, I barely recognize him. His face has this gray color to it like old newspaper, and he's thinner than I've ever seen him, his clothes hanging loose on his frame. He tries to smile when he sees me, tries to make some joke about us sneaking around like spies, but it comes out flat and sad, his voice weak. We stand there in the cold morning air, and I can hear him breathing hard just from walking across the parking lot, these little wheezing sounds that make my chest hurt. He asks if Mom is safe, and I tell him yes, that she's away and protected, and something in his face relaxes just a tiny bit. Victor pulls up in an unmarked car with another guy I don't know, someone Victor introduces as his tech specialist without giving a name. The tech guy has Dad lift his shirt and starts taping this small black device to his chest, explaining how it works and where the microphone sits, and how Dad needs to avoid touching it or adjusting his shirt too much. Dad makes another bad joke about feeling like he's in a cop show, asking if he gets a cool code name, but nobody laughs because we all know how dangerous this actually is. The wire looks so obvious to me, this black square visible under Dad's thin shirt, but the tech guy says it'll be fine as long as Dad wears a jacket. Victor hands Dad a burner phone, one of those cheap flip phones you can buy at gas stations, and explains that he needs to call the handler and set up the meeting. Dad takes the phone and his hands shake as he dials the number, the same one that's been texting me for days. He puts it on speaker so we can all hear, and it rings 4 times before she answers with just a flat hello. Dad's voice steadies as he talks, offering to trade the gold tooth in exchange for canceling the whole contract, saying he has the coordinates and the proof and everything they need. Between sentences, he coughs these deep, rattling coughs that sound like they're tearing him apart from the inside. But he keeps talking, keeps making his case. Victor and the tech guy are recording everything on their equipment, watching the levels, and making sure it's all coming through clear. The handler's response comes quick and firm through the speaker, her voice calm like she's discussing a business transaction. She says there are no cancellations in this business, only substitutions, and the contract will be fulfilled one way or another, regardless of what Dad wants. Dad's face falls when he hears that, all the hope draining out of his expression, and for a second, I think he's going to just give up. His shoulders slump, and he looks at me with these defeated eyes, like he's already accepted that this is how it ends. We change tactics fast, Victor making hand signals and mouthing words to guide Dad through the new approach. Dad clears his throat and promises to deliver proof if she'll meet him in a public place this afternoon, somewhere with witnesses where nothing bad can happen. He suggests the library or the mall food court, places with cameras and security and lots of people around. The line goes quiet for a long time, so long I think she hung up, but then I can hear her breathing and maybe talking to someone else in the background. Finally, she says she'll consider it, and the line goes dead before Dad can say anything else. She texts back about an hour later, while we're all still sitting in Victor's car going over the plan. The message comes through on the burner phone naming a farmer's market that runs every Saturday downtown. One of those outdoor setups with produce stands and craft vendors, and usually a decent crowd. She says Dad needs to come alone or the deal is off. No cops, no family, just him with the tooth. Victor immediately starts pulling up maps of the farmer's market on his laptop, marking out surveillance positions and sight lines and places where his team can blend in without being obvious. He explains they'll have plainclothes officers positioned as shoppers, maybe 4 or 5 people scattered around, all wearing body cameras and ready to move in if things go wrong. Dad just nods along, looking more tired with every minute that passes, and I wonder if he'll even make it to tomorrow. Saturday morning arrives, and Victor picks us up at 6 a.m., way before the market opens, to run through the whole plan one more time in his unmarked car, parked 3 blocks away from the setup location. He spreads a printed map of the farmer's market across the dashboard, marking positions with a red pen, while explaining where each plainclothes officer will be stationed throughout the vendor stalls. Officer Martinez will pretend to shop for vegetables near the north entrance. Officer Kim will browse the craft booths on the west side, and 2 others will work the center aisles buying coffee and baked goods, like regular weekend shoppers. Victor taps the pen on a spot near the flower stand and tells Dad this is where the exchange needs to happen, right in the open, where 5 different body cameras can capture everything the handler says and does. Dad nods along, but his hands shake when he reaches for his coffee cup, and I notice how gray his skin looks in the early morning light coming through the windshield. Victor goes over the code phrases 3 times, making Dad repeat them back until he gets every word exactly right. If Dad feels unsafe, he's supposed to say, "I need some water," and officers will close in slowly. But if things go bad fast, he should yell, "I need to," call his doctor, and everyone moves in immediately from all directions. My brain feels fuzzy trying to remember all these details, like I'm watching this happen to someone else instead of actually sitting here planning a sting operation on people who want my family dead. Victor asks if I understand my role, and I nod, even though my anxiety is so high I can barely focus on the instructions he's giving me about staying back near the parking lot entrance. He hands me a phone number written on a torn piece of paper and tells me to call it if anything goes wrong, if Dad collapses, or if I see the handler's backup guys making moves that look dangerous. The fake gold tooth sits in a small evidence bag on the center console, and Victor picks it up to show Dad one more time how his tech team machined it to look identical to the real one. It's got the same weight, the same seam down the middle, even opens the same way, but inside there's just blank paper instead of coordinates. Dad takes the fake tooth and turns it over in his palm, practicing the handoff motion like he's preparing for a magic trick instead of a meeting with criminals. We drive to the farmer's market and park in different spots. Victor in the main lot and me 2 streets over where I can see the entrance but stay out of the way. The market is already setting up, vendors unloading crates of produce and arranging flowers in buckets, and I watch regular people start arriving with their canvas shopping bags and travel mugs. Officer Martinez walks past my car wearing jeans and a baseball cap, looking exactly like every other weekend shopper, and I only recognize her because Victor pointed her out in a photo earlier. Dad gets out of Victor's car and walks toward the market entrance, moving slow and stopping twice to cough into his elbow. I lose sight of him when he turns down the main aisle between the vegetable stands and the bread vendors. My phone buzzes with a text from Victor saying the handler just arrived in a black sedan, and I scan the parking lot until I spot her getting out near the south entrance. She's wearing sunglasses and a light jacket, walking casual like she's here to buy tomatoes, and I watch her disappear into the crowd of shoppers. 10 minutes pass, and nothing happens. Just normal market activity, people picking through produce and talking to vendors about prices. Then I see Dad near the flower stand, right where Victor marked on the map, and the handler approaches from the opposite direction, carrying a paper cup of coffee. They stand close together, not touching, and I'm too far away to hear anything, but I see Dad reach into his pocket and pull out the fake tooth. The handler takes it and examines it carefully, turning it over in her fingers under the morning sun, and even from this distance I can see her smile like she knows something is off, but doesn't care. She opens the tooth, looks at the blank paper inside, then closes it and slips it into her jacket pocket. They talk for maybe 30 seconds, Dad gesturing with his hands while she stands perfectly still, and then her expression changes. She says something that makes Dad's shoulders tense up, and I see her looking around the market like she's searching for someone specific. The handler's lips move, and I wish I could hear what she's saying, but then she points directly at me across the parking lot, even though I'm sitting in my car trying to stay invisible. Two men appear from behind the craft booth section, moving in close on either side of Dad, and I recognize them from the strip mall meeting as her backup muscle. One of them says something to Dad, and suddenly he's bent over double, coughing so violently that people around him stop shopping to stare. Dad's whole body shakes with each cough, his face turning red, and he nearly collapses onto the pavement between the flower stand and the bread vendor's table. For a second, I completely forget this is supposed to be a setup, and my only thought is that he's actually dying right there in front of everyone. I'm already reaching for my door handle, ready to run to him, when I remember Victor's instructions about staying back and letting the officers handle everything. Dad drops to one knee, still coughing, and the handler steps back like she doesn't want to be associated with whatever medical emergency is happening. The two men grab Dad's arms to hold him up or hold him down. I can't tell which, and that's when I hear Dad's voice carry across the parking lot. He's shouting the code phrase between coughs, yelling about needing to call his doctor, and suddenly the whole market seems to shift. Officer Martinez drops her shopping basket and moves fast toward the flower stand, and I see Officer Kim coming from the west side, both of them pulling badges from their pockets. A third officer I didn't even notice before emerges from near the coffee cart, and all three are converging on Dad and the handler from different angles. People start screaming and backing away, shoppers grabbing their kids and running for the parking lot, and one of the handler's men takes off sprinting through the market stalls. He knocks over a display of apples, sending fruit rolling everywhere, and crashes through the craft booth section, with Officer Kim chasing behind him. The other backup guy lets go of Dad and puts his hands up immediately, not even trying to run, and Officer Martinez has him on the ground in handcuffs within seconds. The handler doesn't run or fight or even look surprised. She just stands there calm, while Officer Martinez approaches with handcuffs ready, and when the officer tells her to turn around and put her hands behind her back, she does it like she's been through this routine 100 times before. Her face shows nothing. No anger or fear or even annoyance. Just this blank expression like getting arrested at a farmer's market is a minor inconvenience in her day that she'll deal with later. That complete lack of reaction disturbs me more than if she'd tried to fight or escape, because it means this is just business to her, just another transaction that didn't work out. Officer Martinez reads her rights while other shoppers film everything on their phones, and I see Dad still on his knees trying to catch his breath between coughing fits. An ambulance pulls into the parking lot with lights flashing but no siren, and paramedics jump out with their equipment bags. They load Dad onto a stretcher and wheel him toward the ambulance while Victor appears next to me, tapping on my car window and motioning for me to follow him. I get out, and Victor guides me to a police car parked near the market entrance, telling me I need to come to the hospital too for a statement about everything that just happened. My hands won't stop shaking as I slide into the back seat, and Victor sits up front making notes on a small pad, while the officer driving navigates through weekend traffic toward the hospital. The whole ride takes maybe 15 minutes but feels like hours, and I keep replaying the handler's blank face in my mind, that complete absence of emotion when the handcuffs clicked shut. At the hospital, they take Dad straight into the emergency section, while I sit in the waiting room with Victor going over every detail of what I saw at the market. A nurse comes out after about 40 minutes and explains that Dad is severely dehydrated and his cancer has progressed faster than the doctors expected based on his last checkup. She says he needs rest and fluids, not police interrogations, and she makes Victor promise to keep any questioning brief and low stress. They set Dad up in a room with an IV drip running into his arm, and when I finally get to see him, he's already asleep, his breathing shallow and raspy. The room smells like disinfectant and something else I can't identify. Maybe the smell of someone's body slowly shutting down. Victor pulls me aside in the hospital hallway, away from Dad's room, and explains that the handler lawyered up within an hour of her arrest and isn't talking to anyone without her attorney present. The guy who ran through the market stalls got away in the chaos, disappeared into the neighborhood behind the farmer's market before Officer Kim could catch up. Victor says it's not the clean victory he hoped for, not the kind of case that wraps up neat with everyone in custody, but it's something real that the district attorney can work with. He tells me to go home and get some rest, that there's nothing more I can do at the hospital tonight, but I stay in Dad's room anyway, watching him sleep, until a nurse kicks me out after visiting hour's end. The next morning, I meet Fletcher at his office downtown, bringing the gun from my trunk in the same locked toolbox where I've been hiding it for weeks. Fletcher has me surrender it through proper channels with a detective from the evidence unit present, and they document everything in chain of custody forms that I have to sign in 3 different places. The detective bags the gun and labels it with case numbers, while Fletcher explains that this cooperation will help significantly if any charges come my way, that prosecutors look favorably on defendants who turn over evidence voluntarily instead of forcing them to get search warrants. Fletcher says the district attorney hasn't made any decisions yet about charging me with anything, but my willingness to work with police and testify if needed puts me in a much better position than if I'd kept hiding the weapon. I sign the last form and watch the detective carry the gun out of Fletcher's office in a sealed evidence bag, and for the first time in days, I feel like maybe I can breathe normally again. The next afternoon, I pack up Mom's things from the motel and drive her across town to stay with her friend from church who has a spare bedroom. We sit in the car outside the house for 10 minutes before I tell her about Dad's cancer diagnosis, the stage 4 lung cancer he's had for months, without saying anything to anyone. She doesn't react at first, just stares straight ahead through the windshield. Then her face crumples, and she starts crying in these horrible gasping sobs that make her whole body shake. I hold her while she cries, and she keeps saying she should have known. She should have seen it. How could she not have noticed her own husband was dying? An hour passes before she can breathe normally again, and I walk her inside to meet her friend, who takes over the comforting while I unload her suitcase. 2 days later, I get a call from the hospital saying Dad wants to see me, and when I arrive, a hospice coordinator is in his room explaining care options with pamphlets spread across the bed. Dad looks smaller somehow, like the hospital stay sucked something vital out of him, and he tells me he's done fighting. No chemo, no radiation, just hospice care to keep him comfortable for whatever time he has left. The coordinator steps out to give us privacy, and Dad says Victor is coming by later to take his statement, that he wants everything documented properly before his mind starts going. Victor arrives an hour later with a recording device and legal forms, and Dad walks him through the entire contract scheme from the beginning without leaving anything out. His voice stays steady even when he talks about Grandma's idea, about the $1 million, about how it was supposed to save us all. When he finishes signing the statement, he leans back against the pillows and closes his eyes, and I swear, he looks more relaxed than I've seen him in weeks. The hospice coordinator comes back in to discuss transferring Dad to their facility, and I leave them to handle the logistics. 2 weeks crawl by with me splitting time between visiting Dad at hospice and trying to keep Mom stable at her friend's place. Victor calls on a Tuesday morning while I'm making coffee and tells me they executed a search warrant on a storage unit connected to the handler's operation. Inside, they found boxes of burner phones, ledgers with names and dates going back years, and folders full of contracts for hits across 3 states. He says the district attorney is building a racketeering case now, because this is way bigger than just our situation, that the handler was running a whole network of contract kills. The way Victor describes it makes my stomach turn, thinking about how many other families got pulled into this same nightmare. He tells me the investigation is ongoing, and I might need to testify eventually, but for now, I should focus on Dad and staying safe. The next day, I meet with Harlow Crawford at a coffee shop downtown, a victim advocate Victor recommended who specializes in witness protection and court processes. She's direct and practical, not offering false hope or promises about money or round-the-clock security. Instead, she walks me through developing safety plans, varying my routines, staying aware of my surroundings and what to expect if the case goes to trial. She gives me her card and tells me to call anytime I feel unsafe or need guidance navigating the legal system. I leave that meeting feeling like at least someone is being honest with me about how messy this whole thing is going to stay. 3 weeks after the farmer's market, I visit Dad in his hospice room and find him awake and alert, which is getting rarer as the medication increases. We sit together in the quiet room that smells like cleaning products and something floral from the diffuser on the nightstand. He starts apologizing for everything without asking me to forgive him, just laying it all out like he needs me to understand, even if I can't accept it. He talks about being scared of leaving us with nothing, about watching Grandma die knowing she had this plan, about thinking he could fix everything if he just tried hard enough. I tell him I understand why he did it even though it was wrong, that I get the desperation even if I can't agree with the choice. We don't hug or cry or have some big emotional moment. We just sit there together until he falls asleep, and I drive home feeling emptier than before. The news breaks 2 days later that the handler is facing multiple charges, including conspiracy to commit murder and racketeering, with federal prosecutors taking over the case. The local news runs the story, but keeps most details vague, just saying it's connected to a larger investigation into contract killing operations. I watch the coverage on my phone and feel weird seeing this thing that almost destroyed my family turned into a 30-second news segment. It's not perfect justice, and the people above the handler are probably still out there, but at least there are real consequences happening. 5 weeks after Grandma's funeral, I get a call from the hospice at 3 in the morning saying I should come now if I want to be there. I drive through empty streets and arrive to find Dad asleep with his breathing shallow and irregular, each breath taking longer to come than the last. Mom is already there sitting in the corner chair, and we don't talk, just exist in the same space while Dad dies. A nurse checks on him every 20 minutes, adjusting his position and checking his vital signs with gentle efficiency. Around sunrise, his breathing changes, becomes even more labored, and I take his hand while Mom moves her chair closer. He dies without waking up, just stops breathing between one moment and the next, and the nurse confirms it with her stethoscope before giving us time alone with the body. The hospice staff handles everything with practiced kindness, explaining next steps and paperwork while treating Dad's body with respect. We leave as the sun comes up fully, and I drive Mom back to her friend's place, where she disappears into the guest room without saying goodbye. 3 months later, I sit in Fletcher's office signing a plea agreement for misdemeanor unlawful weapons possession, accepting probation and mandatory counseling instead of jail time. Fletcher explains, this is the best possible outcome given everything that happened, that the prosecutor took my cooperation and Dad's death into account when offering the deal. I sign all the forms and try to feel relieved, but mostly just feel tired. The counseling requirement doesn't bother me since I probably need it anyway after everything. 4 months after this whole thing started, we finally have a proper funeral for Grandma, just family in a quiet ceremony at the cemetery. Sarah flies in from college, and we stand together while they lower Grandma's casket into the ground, the way it should have happened the first time. Afterward, Sarah and I drive to Dad's favorite park and scatter some of his ashes on the bench where he used to sit and read the newspaper. We make a promise right there to check in with each other every week no matter what, to not let the family fall apart now that we're the only ones left to hold it together. For the first time in months, I feel like maybe we'll actually be okay, like maybe we can build something normal out of all this mess. So yeah, that's basically the whole thing. Nothing crazy, just me talking through another weird part of life. Thanks for hanging out. It really feels like a chill catch-up. Hit subscribe if you want to do it again.